So next up, we're going to talk about GitHub Pages, a pretty fun is the wrong term, I guess useful feature of GitHub is that we can actually host web pages out of GitHub repositories for free, very easily, with basically a single click of a button. Once our code is up on GitHub, we can host a website. Now, there are some restrictions. This is not a full-fledged hosting service. You can't do anything except static web pages. So that means no server-side languages like Python, Ruby, or Node. You're purely HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's what you're limited to, client-side static pages. But you can still create really amazing portfolio websites or documentation websites for your repositories. You can host, if you build a JavaScript game, you can use GitHub Pages to host that. But you don't want to use GitHub Pages for any high capacity website where you're expecting a lot of traffic. It's not really meant for that. But it's a really nice feature. And again, it's free and it's built into GitHub. So it makes hosting very, very easy for certain situations. So I'm going to show you some examples. Here's the GitHub Pages homepage where they explain how it works. There's a video you can watch. Then they have the instructions. But if we go to a project like Faker, which is a JavaScript library, this is the actual project on GitHub, right? It's open source. This is the entire repository, all the collaborators, or contributors rather. If I scroll down though, there's a link right here to view the documentation. So it's not the most beautiful website, but it is documentation. It has to do with the library Faker. It's okay if you have no idea what it is, but this is docs for this project. And if you notice this URL, it has GitHub in the URL, github.io. So all GitHub pages are going to use that domain, github.io. You can change that. You can actually customize it and set it up to use your own URL, but I'm not going to go into that. But that tells us this is actually hosted thanks to GitHub Pages. And here's another example. This is a repository. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Here we are. This repository is a fork of that 2048 game where this person here, Ovolve created a solver, an AI solver for the popular game 2048. So we can see the code here, but also thanks to GitHub Pages, there's this URL I can go to view the website. And I don't know if you can see this. I'll zoom in, hopefully. It's ovolve.github.io/2048AI. So it has GitHub in there again, github.io. So this is another example where there's the actual repository. There's a README, there's information about the project, but then there's a corresponding website, and it happens to be hosted by GitHub. Same thing that we saw with Faker. Here is the project, the repository on GitHub, and here's a website that goes along with that project. It pertains to that project, and it has GitHub in that URL as well. So there are two flavors of GitHub Pages. There are user sites and project sites. So I'm going to focus on project sites. For every single GitHub repository you create, you can have a corresponding hosted website. So that is, every single repo you make, every project, you can have your own corresponding website. And the default URLs are going to follow this pattern. Whatever your username is, so I'm Colt, it's my username, colt.github.io / and then whatever my repo name is, portfolio or 2048 clone or something like that. So that's one per project. Then there's also user sites. You are limited to one of those, one per GitHub account. And this is a different application. It's actually set up differently as well. I'm not going to spend as much time on it, but this is where you could host something like a personal website, a portfolio, anything that you want to be based upon your username.github.io. So colt.github.io, samanthajones.github.io, where it's not a project, it's not a particular repository. Instead, it's about you or your group, your organization. You are allowed one per GitHub account. But we're going to focus on project sites, like the two that I showed you. We have a repo here, and then a corresponding documentation website. And then we have another repo here, and then just a deployed version of this project that we can interact with. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to set this up. It is very simple. Now, you will need to know a little bit of HTML just to make websites, but the actual mechanism to turn it on with GitHub Pages is very easy. So that's coming up.